I do plan to put this up onto my YouTube channel on the internet. I will be or onto YouTube. So if you want to mute your video, you can. I cannot promise to make you YouTube famous, but you know, you never know what will happen, right? So coming over here just to kind of talk about the educational requirements. And first, my disclaimer and copyright notice is that the information and opinions in this presentation are those of myself and not my employers or affiliated organizations, including but not limited to Irvine Valley College and the South Orange County Community College District. Presentations for educational purposes only. It does not constitute any legal or accounting advice whatsoever. Presentation is copyright 2008 to 2025 by Bennett Tchaikovsky, all rights reserved. Any distribution is strictly prohibited. Note that the presentation will refer to companies and other parties or the third parties. I do not claim any copyright that belongs to those third parties. Also, further disclaimers, I'm going to be brutal, honest, and direct with you because I think you would probably appreciate that. And again, what I'm sharing with you are my opinions, right? I spent a lot of time, I've been teaching now for about a little bit more than 12 years. I've taught previously at Cal State Fullerton, Chapman University, Long Beach City College, Pasadena City College, but my main home base is at IVC. But again, when I'm sharing with you different things, I want you to make sure that you're going through and doing your own research. I will also take this presentation that I'm making here today and we'll share it with you as well. Now, the other thing I also want to kind of mention is that for those of you who are joining the call, if you send me an email to ibc30to cpa@gmail.com, and I'll put up that email address a little bit later, I will go through and basically provide you with your own individualized Google Sheet. You'll go on to this Google Sheet. You will list out every class you've ever taken. And then I will go through and basically tell you where you are with regards to today's educational requirements. So if you've gotten the sheet or if you haven't been able to basically finish it yet, that's absolutely okay. You can always contact me after this. I do a lot of these. And just to kind of give you a sense in terms of how many of these mappings that I'm doing right now, all of these people here, all these individuals, and this goes back over a pretty huge period of time, I do just a couple of these, right? So if you look at this as like, oh my goodness, right? This is absolutely insane. I've done these mappings for a lot of different individuals. So this is just basically since like January, this is how many I've gone through and I've done. So this is something I have when it was either the Accounting Society or BAP reach out to me. It's like, absolutely yes. And in fact, I did one of these like a few years back. So just a little bit about myself. I'm also known as the accounting professor on YouTube. This is my channel. So if you want to watch, I have a lot of different videos relating to accounting that are up here. Also, as I've kind of mentioned, I do teach accounting full-time, and I have taught at IVC full-time since August 2014. Oh, it's been a while. Taught a lot of different subjects. I've also been a licensed CPA since August of 1993. I've been an attorney since June 97. So half of everything I say to you will be a lie because of the attorney side. Just kidding. In my prior life, I worked as a CFO for some smaller publicly traded companies. I am right now serving as a board member and audit committee designated financial expert for another publicly traded company. And as I mentioned before, I've taught at Fullerton, Chapman, Long Beach City College, and Pasadena City College. I also interned at Coopers and Lybrand back in the summer of 1990. That tells you how old I am. And then I worked there at Coopers, which is now PwC, for full time. I'm going to start this presentation off a little bit differently, which is, I know that the mapping is important, but I think the one thing I want to kind of impart on all of you is that if you're at Cal State Fullerton taking classes, the most important thing I can really get across to you is that you need to be looking for a full-time job or an internship or whatever it may have you. We are in one of the most challenging economies. This is just an article that basically came out. It had IVC on it. This is one of our graduates who's like 11 years old. I wish I had kids that were, well, I've got two great kids, but this is an article about how challenging the current market is. The other thing which is really interesting from a career perspective and kind of what I've noticed is that you have essentially a lot of people going into accounting. When I started hearing students that were attending USC, right? And how much does USC cost to go to per year? What do you think that costs to go to USC per year? What do you think?
Like over 100K.
It's probably going to be over 100K, right? Unless you can throw that football, shoot that basketball, or you're getting the free sports ride, right? It's incredibly expensive. But when I heard about students that were at USC going into accounting, people at Berkeley, people at use like these different elite schools going into accounting, I'm going, hey, there's something going on right now. And it's essentially, if you are in an accounting major, you're in a great major, but just remember that there is going to be a lot more competition. Also, is there a lot of competition in terms of going into work in Irvine? Does everybody want to work in Irvine? I do, right? It's an amazing place to go through and work. And just to kind of give you like a little bit about my path in terms of recruiting, for summer of 1990, I interviewed in January of 1990. What's crazy is right now, the big four recruiters, and I heard this directly from a big four recruiter, summer 25 and summer 2026 are full in Irvine. They are going to open up summer 27 in Irvine in August of this year. So it's a 2-year lookout window. So the most important thing you can be doing right now is recruiting. What do you need to do to go through and recruit? And what we're going to be doing here today with looking at your units is a very important part of that. But do you have a resume done, right? Where are you with regards to the 150 semester unit requirement? And I'm also going to show you how that's potentially going to go through and change to the 120. Do you have a LinkedIn profile, right? If you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I ask that you come to IVC, spend $46 per unit, and basically suffer through one of my classes. I'll be happy to add you on to LinkedIn. Job history, what different types of jobs have you had? And remember, the most important thing about recruiting is not necessarily, it's not just the grades, it's how are you going to work with others. When they're hiring you, if you have a 4.0 in accounting, that's great, but it's really going to be about, well, we're going to basically take Layla and put her out in front of clients. How is Layla going to be interacting with those clients? That's really one of the most important parts of it, is like basically is that social aspect. The other thing also too is that passing the CPA exam should be your absolute primary focus. As all of you know, there was a new CPA exam format in January 2024. The one thing I want to warn you about Becker CPA Review, it's a great review course, but they were purchased by private equity back in 2022. A guy by the name of Peter Olinto left Becker in July 23, and he joined UWorld. If you are, because like most of you are probably going to be working for a firm where they're going to provide you free CPA review, that's great. But the one thing that is right now tripping up a lot of different students are what we call task-based simulations. By the way, just out of a show of hands, how many of you, like what percentage of the CPA exam are task-based simulations? Any thoughts? So I've got multiple choice, task-based. Which percentage of the CPA exam are task-based simulations? Any thoughts?
Like 30.
It's 50%.
Mm.
So 50% of the questions are problem-based questions. And one of the things is that as you're going through and doing accounting, where a lot of students struggle with is that if you took 301A, 301B, if it was all multiple choice questions, right, and you didn't go through and really practice those problem-based questions that are in the back of KESO, basically the problems, and really learn it deeply, when you get to the exam, it might take you a little bit more time to kind of go through and prepare. But again, why is the CPA exam passing it so important? Because once you become a licensed CPA, the job opportunities are going to be significantly better for you. One of the other things I also want to kind of share with you is when it comes to basically sitting for the CPA exam and becoming licensed, right? So this is the tip sheet that I'm going to be sharing with all of you in terms of looking at basically for the Board of Accounting, or something for the California Board of Accountancy to sit for the CPA exam, right? So what happens when you go to become a CPA? Well, the first thing I'm going to go through and do is I'm going to go to the California Board of Accountancy, let's see, license application. So I'm going to come over here to the California Board of Accountancy license application, and let's see what happens. I'm going to come right over here and I'm going to look at this. I'm going to go to applicants. And then I'm going to basically be an exam applicant because this is what you're going to be going through and applying for. And when you kind of get over here, so essentially apply for the exam, I'm ready to create my account. You're going to come over here and you're going to establish your account to basically become a CPA. When you are going through and applying to sit for the CPA exam, you'll hear me, and in a lot of the messages I've already sent to you, I'll basically make a difference between sitting and becoming licensed, is when you kind of go through and look at this, is that to sit for the exam, you need to be within 6 months of graduating or getting your bachelor's degree, and you have to have 24 semester units of accounting completed and 24 semester units of business subjects completed. That is to sit for the CPA exam. So again, sitting for the CPA exam is different than licensure, right? So to sit for the exam, need to be within 6 months of having my bachelor's degree. I need to have 24 semester units of accounting subjects, 24 semester units of business related subjects. Do I need to be an accounting major? No. Could I be a film studies major? Sure. That actually sounds a lot more exciting. But if I'm a film studies major and I'm making my application, it has to show 24 semester units of accounting with a 24 semester units of business. If I am enrolled in classes, I'm going to be getting to that amount. When I submit my transcript, it'll basically say in process. There's now a new form that you need to bring to the registrar to basically say that you're going to essentially have those units. But in terms of sitting for the exam, this is essentially what you need, is you need to have the 24 accounting, and then you need to have like the 24 of business. The other thing I will also share with you is that if you are in school, basically passing the exam is going to be a lot easier. When we start working, right, what do most employers care about? They want you to be done with the 150. Why is that? Because, well, some firms care more than others, because you are probably going to be working sometimes 70 hours a week, sometimes 80, sometimes 60, but they don't want you to be in school while you're working for a firm. Again, that's usually with the larger firms. Some of the smaller firms are like a little bit different. Passing the CPA exam while you're in school is a lot easier to do than once you've kind of gone through and have graduated. I want to take a brief break, and just because I am talking relatively quickly, it's only 15 minutes in and I'm almost done with my presentation. But what questions do you have of me of what I just kind of went over?
I have
I don't have the chat open, so we have to talk. Layla.
so regarding the 150, and I know there's like a rule change coming up saying that you won't have to do the 150 anymore.
Yes.
And I know the deadline or the timeline when that will be implemented, it's not quite defined yet.
Yes.
So I was wondering, between should we be focusing, obviously to like sit on it, but say the same amount of time to maybe recover those units is the same amount of time to do a master's in accounting. Is that something that you would recommend, or would you say you should focus more on the CPA itself?
Well, I feel I paid you just to say this, because my next slide is right over here. And
Oh, perfect.
this is how the requirements are going to be changing, right? So when we look at this over here, right? So by the way, the 150 as of right now is still essentially holding, right? And I'm going to share this presentation with all of you. And this is actually from the most recent California Board of Accountancy newsletter, right? This little chart that I basically snapshotted and basically put over here. And let me see if I can make it where it's a lot more visual for everybody. But really so essentially what happened is that so taking a step back, when I was an undergraduate a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away, I needed to have a bachelor's degree only with a certain amount of accounting and business units. Once I got past the exam, I had to work for 2 years. So it was a bachelor's degree or 120 plus 2 years of work experience. What's happened is that nationally they want to basically increase essentially the way of, they want to increase the pathway going through to licensure, right? And in terms of licensure, when you're going through and looking at this, they're now going to kind of say, or this is again, everything I'm sharing with you right now is speculative, right? But this is kind of what they put out there. And so more than likely what it's going to be, Layla, just absolutely to your point, it's going to be a bachelor's degree. Does it have to be in accounting? I don't know. It might have to be, but the problem is they're still going to have it, I think, relatively flexible for California. By the way, we are the most liberal state in terms of units, because if you went to South Carolina, they would not accept any of my 200 series courses that I offer at Irvine Valley, right? They're very strict about what they accept as lower and upper division units. California, extremely liberal. I could actually go through and I could go to 10 different community colleges and take accounting 1A at 10 different places and meet the accounting subject requirement. That's absolutely insane. If I did that, the problem would be is that I would be completely unprepared for the CPA exam, although I might know a little bit of FAR. But when you get to the CPA exam, it's in the 4 different parts. It's extremely, extremely broad, right? So when you're looking at the licensure pathway, is that this is going to be changing, which is why my suggestion to you is one, you want to basically, the most important thing out of this is getting a job, because if you graduate, once you've graduated, it becomes extremely difficult to find work. It's a lot easier to find work when you're in school. And again, it's also passing the exam. I would be focused on getting the 120 semester units. And I would also be focused on passing the CPA exam as quickly as possible, right? And to your question about the master's degree, right? And I know from the legislation that I've seen is that they will allow the master's degree in accounting to count as 1 year of the experience. The thing about the master's degree is that my suggestion to you would be is to get your license, your CPA license first, because getting into debt for a master's degree in accounting I'm not sure if that's something that I would do. And by the way, once you've taken, as far as financial accounting is concerned, once you've taken intermediate 1 and 2, you're kind of at the top of the mountain. Getting a master's degree, unless it's like something in tax, to me, that's a tough one. But by the way, UCI and their impact program, and I think Cal State Fullerton has this too. Deloitte underwrites, I think, 10 scholarships at both schools. If you wanted to get a master's degree, do it for free. But my suggestion again I would be focused on taking and passing the CPA exam, getting your CPA license, and then kind of saying, well, at that point, do I go back and get a master's degree? That's what I would kind of say. And like, look, you're at Cal State Fullerton is one of the only AACSB accounting accredited schools in the nation. It's a very, very hard certification to get. They had to go through a lot to get that certification. And, it's one of those things where I would also say too, that if you're going to get your master's degree, I would probably get it from a place other than where you went for undergrad. That's why I would probably look at UCI. Again, if it's free, it may actually be worth it. Does that kind of answer your question, Layla?
Yes, it does. I guess just a little more clarification
Mhm.
on, I know you said to like sit on the exam, say if you're
The
an
CPA
accounting
exam.
major.
Mhm.
Um, I guess like how many more units would you have to take to be able to like sit or I guess help you with studying for the CPA?
So so if I go through and look at the CPA exam, right, and I'm just going to kind of show you, I'm just going to take you through your world real quick. So if I go into UWorld is one, it's basically used to be known as Rogers CPA review, right? But for the CPA exam, what are the parts that I have to go through and take? I have to take auditing. I have to take FAR. I have to take reg. Those are the three classes that I have to go through and take. For auditing, I believe the class at Cal State Fullerton is accounting 402, right? Any kind of auditing class you take, that's going to help you get an understanding of those materials. For FAR, it's really going to be accounting 301A and accounting 301B. And when you look at the different topics that are on FAR, right? And by the way, whatever you didn't learn at your four-year university, like there's no way as academics we can teach you everything you need to know for the CPA exam. Like, for example, did you take a class in governmental or not-for-profits? Probably not, right? But this will help you go through and do it. Same with state and local government concepts, public company reporting, all these different things. But all of this here, like cash and cash equivalents, trade receivables, inventory, PP&E, investments, and tangibles, this is all 301A. Like payables, debt, equity, 301B, accounting changes and error corrections, 301B, contingencies and commitments, 301B, revenue rec, I do it in 301A, fair value, lessee accounting and subsequent events. Those are all going to probably be in 301B. So again, depending upon how crazy your classes were, it basically means when you go to if you spent a lot of time learning the material when you were preparing for your classes, it means it's going to be a lot easier in terms of preparing for the CPA exam. But the key is with the CPA exam, and again, I'm not trying to use this as clickbait, but I spent about a little bit more than an hour with a guy by the name of Jeff Elliott. And Jeff Elliott ran, I think he's got a blog called like Another 71 or Another 73. But basically this right here, if you go to my channel and you just type in Ninja, this is about an hour and 6 long conversation about just the CPA exam and basically his own journey about Another 71, which I think you can find on Reddit, but this is my interview with Jeff. And he kind of goes through the strategies in terms of going through and taking and preparing for the CPA exam. So again, like the CPA exam, is it a challenging test? And the answer is, oh, absolutely yes. Is it passable? Absolutely yes. It just depends upon how much time you've been putting into your accounting classes. So I have my own philosophies in terms of teaching accounting. The most important thing to me is like watching my students take and pass the exam. And so I've altered my teaching over the years to basically make it so my students perform better on the CPA exam. But it's because, again, it's just one of those things where yeah, it's a tough test, but it's definitely doable. You just want to, and again, my advice is get the CPA license as quickly as possible. That would really be my overall suggestion to you. Does that make sense, or did I not answer your question?
No, that helped. Thank you.
Sure. Musa, you got a question?
Yes. I was wondering if you could show the 24 accounting, that sheet that you had.
Sure.
there was a third requirement with the 20 units of.
But yeah, we haven't gotten to that.
Okay.
Right,
Okay.
this is great. So to
No.
sit for the exam, I just need 24 and 24, right? What happens is when you apply to sit for the exam, you're going to basically send to the Board of Accountancy your electronic transcripts, whatever paperwork they want. And then most importantly, you have to send them the check for like, I think it's like $100 for the application fee. If you don't send them the money, they won't review your application. So make sure you send the cash. It'll probably take them, and there's like I think it takes them between 4 to 6 weeks to kind of go through and to review your application. But remember, when they're reviewing your application, all they care about is, are you going to have a bachelor's degree, any subject within the next 6 months, right? That's basically the contingency. And then do you have or will you have 24 accounting and 24 business units completed, right? That's the only thing they care about. Now, once you pass the CPA exam, right? So basically, once I go through and pass the CPA exam for licensure, right? I'm going to have to then go through, at least under the current requirements, right? I would have to do another 20 semester units of accounting study and 10 semester units of ethics studies, right? Now, for ethics studies, you can take an audit class, and that'll count down here, but very important, if you took an auditing class up here, you cannot double count it. You could have to take another accounting class in order to go through and to push this down, right? So this is kind of like when I'm having you go through and list out all of your classes. Layla, do you mind if I think I did your mapping, correct?
You did, you can use it.
Yeah, thank you. So right over here. Okay. So basically what I went through and did for Layla, right? So she went through and basically listed out every single class she ever took, right? So kind of what my job was is I kind of said, okay, I basically then take what you send to me, I assign it a letter. What does that letter mean? Oh, group A is accounting, group B is business, group C is accounting study, group D is ethics studies, right? And then what I kind of go through and then do is say, okay, Layla, you've taken 21 semester units of accounting, so you need another 3 semester units to meet the educational requirement. Over here, Layla has taken a lot of business classes, right? Because remember, for business, it's stats, math, management. There's a lot of different items that count as basically as a business course. It is extremely broad, right? And then as we look over here for the ethics studies, because basically what this part here does, it says, well, you need 20 semester units of accounting study, right? But only 6 of these have to be in accounting. 14 can be from business. So what you'll see is on Layla's sheet right over here, I show she's got 55 business subjects. I take out 14, put it down here to group C. And then basically she just needs another 6 more units of accounting. Additionally, over here, Layla, I believe you have taken auditing, right? So you took an auditing class, accounting 402. Always want to say it's accounting 420, but that's probably a different type of accounting class. So if I say over here, accounting 402, if Layla wants to count, like she could basically have audit count down here, but she would have to basically take another 3 units to replace that one particular course. So that's really when you look at group, and then again, like what are these 2 bottom categories? This is ethics studies, like what counts here. I know I've done enough of these that all of you have to take organizational behavior. All of you have to take a legal environment of business class, right? I teach accounting 220 or accounting ethics at Irvine Valley College. I probably have had, I don't know, at least 20 of my students, I think every semester, I think are actually from Fullerton. There's a huge Fullerton contingency that takes my ethics course at IVC. By the way, when you take classes at a community college, so let me just pause something quick. How much do we charge per unit if you want to go to IBC? Or any, if I wanted to go to Santa Ana, want to go to any community college, what do they charge per unit?
Like $40.
You're close, 46 bucks, right? In the Price is Right game, you would have done pretty well. $46 per unit. What does Cal State Fullerton charge? Is it more than 46 a unit? Yes. I think one of my classes might be cheaper than a semester of parking at Cal State Fullerton. So when you look at this, right, from the perspective of, in terms of getting the other units done, you know, you can do them anywhere. If you want to do them at Fullerton, that's great. You want to do them in a community college, that's great. The thing, though, that you want to kind of go through and keep in mind is that if I take, by the way, I could take a QuickBooks class, right, Counting 204 at IBC, but is that going to help me with preparing for the CPA exam? And the answer is going to be no. Right? When you're taking classes, you kind of want to kind of keep in mind in terms of like, what am I going to need to kind of go through and do to help me kind of go through and prepare? I want to try to take classes that'll help me prepare for the exam. So Layla, on your sheet, as well as all these sheets, you will go through and see over here video links. There's a video right over here of like, what classes should I go through and take to prepare for the CPA exam? So if you want more information specifically on that, there's a lot of information that's over here. So Musa, did that answer your question, or did that help in terms of like for sitting? Then let me just talk really quickly about licensure. Once you pass the CPA exam, right, then what happens? I have to show that I have a year of work experience, right? That's the general experience requirement. If I'm showing, and that, by the way, that goes to your CPA license, right? So for example, I have an A designation on my CPA license. Does that mean I got an A in my accounting classes? No, I didn't get an A in all my accounting classes. What does that mean is that I could sign off on audit and attest reports, right? It's that type of experience will easily take you 2 years to get. The general experience is extremely broad, but when you're applying for licensure, you have to show that you've passed the CPA exam. You have to show that you have the work experience. And then the other thing you also have to go through and show is going to be the 150. So when you're applying for licensure is when they're going to be going through and basically doing it. So Layla, if you didn't list out a 3-unit class, you could literally apply to sit for the exam right now. That mean that you'd have the units for licensure under the current standards? No, but you know, again, you can easily take those classes at community colleges just to basically save yourself money. If you spend $80,000 on a master's degree at USC, or that's probably actually not even the right price, it's probably even more money. There can be benefits to a master's degree. It allows you to go through and to re-recruit, but in my opinion, it's just a lot of debt to get into. I would really, you know, and again, I'm also an attorney. Would I advise students to go to law school? It's a great education. Again, I would work for a few years before going back to school. That's generally what my advice would be, in my opinion. So, Musa, did that answer your question? Okay, cool. So this is kind of like basically for licensure, right? So to sit for the exam is essentially different than basically licensure. And again, for licensure, it's the 120 plus another 20 semester units of accounting study, only of which 6 need to be in accounting. And then you need 10 semester units of ethics studies. And that's why a lot of the students will come to IBC to kind of come through and basically to get that class out of the way. The other thing too is that I mentioned this a little bit earlier about South Carolina. Every state has different licensure requirements. However, getting licensed in California, again, we're extremely liberal. And again, my opinion on this is I think that the CPA exam is the ultimate gatekeeper, right? That exam is brutal. It's tough. You got to pass it. You have it a lot easier than I did because I took all 4 parts in one sitting. So I literally had to take all 4 parts over 3 days in beautiful Carson, California, back in May of 1991. So you guys have it. Oh, I can, sit for one part for 4 hours, and I go sit for another part for 4 hours. So it's a very, very, it's still a hard exam. But again, it's one of those things that you're kind of battling against yourself. Okay. And we've kind of like, wow, just for these different conversations we've had is like, what classes do we go through and take? Again, I would just, whenever you're whenever you're kind of going through to take a class, do your research. And, if you're taking anything in a community college, I would really just recommend taking it pass, no pass. Obviously, accounting 1A, 1B are different because those are the ones that transfer to a Cal State. But if you're taking like a 200 series class at IBC, that's what you want to go through and do. Okay. So now this is great. Let's just open this up for questions. I can answer whatever I can help you guys with. If you guys want to talk about recruiting, I did do a few I don't know if any of you saw this, but earlier in the year, I did these meetings called pre-meet the firms, where I basically had different accounting firms come in and I interviewed them basically from like RSM and from some other places. I have recordings of those. Whatever else I can help you with, please let me know. Musa, you had a question?
In terms of the exam, I was planning on maybe taking the harder ones first so that I just have them out of the way. So which exams would you say are considered to be the harder exams compared to the other ones?
It's all going to depend upon, right? Like, so it depends on how you were tortured academically in your accounting classes, right? If you took me, like my accounting 1A students are not very happy with me right now because I make their life a living, I make that class brutal, right? Just to kind of give you a little bit of a preview for my accounting 1A final. So I have them go through and they have to kind of go through and prepare a statement of cash flows based on this. And I'm throwing in like equipment sales and everything else into this. This is my lower division financial accounting class. What's crazy is when I got to chapter 4 or 5 in KESO, when I was teaching intermediate, it's like, oh, my 1A exam is harder than what is being, shown. Like what my 1A exam is more challenging than what's on those upper division things. So I think that when you go into the CPA exam, and again, when I've spoken with my students, the difficulty that you're going to have with this test is directly related to how challenging were your classes when you were taking these classes at an undergraduate level. If you didn't go through and do dollar value LIFO, if you didn't go through and do some of these more challenging topics, it just means that when you go to the CPA review, it's going to take longer. If you only took exams with multiple choice questions, when you get to the task-based simulations, it means it's going to be more difficult. Again, I would really encourage you to go through and to watch that interview I did with Jeff Elliott, because his philosophy of handwriting out all these different notes, I think is actually a really winning thing. It's like with my students, I don't use Connect, I don't use Wiley Plus unless I have to. I have my students handwrite out the solutions to the homework questions multiple times, and they generally find success with that. But in terms of the difficulty of the exam parts, FAR, reg, then I would say auditing. And the last one, which is really tough to give you advice on, because I would actually want you to watch the Jeff Elliott interview. Once you choose TCP, ISC, or bar, that's your permanent choice. What Jeff was suggesting was he's saying, oh, and if you look at the pass rates, I think TCP is the highest, but that actually can be somewhat deceptive because the people I know that are passing that really well are those that have been working in taxation for like 4 to 5, like a couple of years. right? It's easier for them to pass. If you take bar, and again, I would refer you to that interview that I did with Jeff, is that coming over here, it's like, well, financial statement analyses, goodwill, internally developed software, revenue recognition, stock comp, R&D, business combination. So it's a lot of the material that was in the old FAR that, and also I think in BEC that they threw into bar. So you'll hear different people say different things, but you have to be really careful because once you make that decision, that's your permanent decision. And by the way, is passing the exam, and again, I'll make this point again, you want to try to pass the exam while you're in school. And also to just from a, I'm also just going to mention this, you want to become a CPA. Why is that so important? Is because when you are being hired by employers, do I hire a CPA with 3 years of experience or a non-CPA with 8? I'm probably going to hire the CPA with 3 years. Why is that? Because they may do a bad job, right? But if they do something crazy, not only are they going to get fired, they're going to lose their license. And trust me, that is a license you will never want to lose once you have it. I mean, I can, you know, I want to say I don't really care about my bar license. Like if they want to like basically, you know, take away my bar license, that's okay. But I would give a fight about my CPA license. That to me is something that is, you know, you'll treasure for the rest of your life. And it just, again, from an employment perspective of, you know, Layla, you were asking earlier about a master's degree. What's more impressive, a master's degree or a CPA license? Without question, it's a CPA license. There's just nothing, and it's like you can even say the thing about the MBA. What's more valuable, an MBA or a CPA license? Well, if it's an MBA from an in-person studying at Harvard, it may be incredibly valuable. But absent something like that, CPA license is going to be more valuable. I've been, because of what's been going on with the economy, and I kind of scrolled through with you the different mappings. It is an incredibly difficult environment right now. I'm hoping it's going to get better soon. You're also kind of seeing trends at accounting firms whereby a lot of people are staying like a lot longer, but that's just because private industry has slowed down and not hiring as many people out of the larger firms right now, but it does still happen. So anyways, Tatiana, you got a question?
Yeah, so specifically for group C and D, I see that like you can't go over like 14 units of like business related. It's like more intricate than group A and B.
No, so basically what this is like the way I do it, right, is that you can go like, no, it's basically you see 20 units, right? So Layla here has taken like 17 extra business units, right? They're just, that's okay, right? You can go over and take more units. It doesn't really matter, right? It's just really a matter in terms of where everything falls into categories, right? What's great about Fullerton is because you take like, all of you have to take, I think it's organizational behavior, operations management. If you take a leadership class, if you take business, if you take a government class, if you take a legal business law or legal environment of business, you know, usually like those classes, like for Cal State Fullerton students, the ethics studies is a lot easier to do. At UCI, it's a lot more difficult because for whatever reason at UCI, the biz econ majors don't, or the economic or biz econ or econ majors don't end up taking these types of courses. So, you know, if you're going through and, you know, going the traditional pathway, which I think is basically down over here in terms of like, okay, if I have to be if I'm going to be over here to get my concentration in accounting, right? Looking at these different parts like managing operations, management of organizations, and then obviously like the other one is the legal environment of business, you're going to fulfill most of those ethics studies requirements. So you can go over, it's not a big deal. It's just really a matter of, and I've actually had one student who I think took like 70 units of accounting. I don't know why, but they took that many classes. You know, I enjoy trying to take film studies classes, but if I do extra ones. But Tatiana, did that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess it's in terms of mine specifically, like I'm trying to read
Can I pull up your thing?
yeah, that's fine.
Okay. So when I go through and basically went over here to go through and sort through your units, right? So basically where you are right now is you need about 7 more semester units of accounting. You have plenty of business units, right? Because you took 44 business related units, like you took math, you took these different types of business analytics. And so you took a total of 44. You only need 24 to meet group B. So that excess amount I put down over here into group C, right? So when I look at the Board of Accountancy, you know, basically I only need 24. So 14 of these, because it's a maximum of 14 semester units. So 14 of these can kind of fall down to this area over here. And then for this last part, you've got basically you took Intro to Business Law and American Government. And so essentially then for this part, you'd need another 4 semester units of accounting, ethics, or audit. So that's how this would work. Now, in terms of total units, you're at 140. Once you complete the 7 accounting, another 6 basically for light, you're going to basically be at more than 150.
Okay.
And again, like going through and you've taken some pretty interesting classes, and I would say this, I mean, like if you took classes in chemistry, which are always, you know, always fun, but it's like if you end up working like at say Edwards Life Sciences, or you have like that in your background, or if you were a chemistry major, or you were switching over majors into accounting, that's going to enable you to have more engaging conversations potentially with your clients.
Yeah, I used to be an environmental science major, so that's
And
why
there
I
you go.
have like different things.
Yeah. So yeah, no, it's always good. I mean, like, look, everything, all these different classes you take, it's not, I would never look at something as like a wasted class. I would just say, no, it's going to make me more well-rounded, and it's going to give me more interesting things to kind of talk about, you know, when I'm going through and doing the interviewing process.
Okay. Thank you very much. I
Did
appreciate
that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Cool, sure. Who else had whatever you guys want to ask about? More than happy to chat with you.
I have a quick question about the IVC classes.
Mhm.
So do you know if they're offered over the summer and winter sessions?
Sure, we have 3 sessions. And again, this is, I'm not like using this as a promotion to tell you like, oh, Melissa, you have to take your classes at IVC because you watch this video. No, it's essentially if I come over here to summer, and I come over here to accounting, right? So we offer financial and managerial, which I know all of you have taken. We've got a data analytics fundamentals. If you see any of these courses here with ACCT, they will go through and will count towards the California Board of Accountancy requirements. We're offering QuickBooks. We clearly have a section that's pretty wide open. Payroll class, individual income tax, business taxation. The one thing I'll mention is this gentleman right here, Stephen Grinberg, if you don't know who he is. He worked for about 35 years with the IRS. I took about 9 tax courses in my career. I wish I would have taken them all with him because he literally uses the tax forms to teach income tax, which is actually genius. He doesn't use a textbook. Tax policies and procedures. The classes I'm teaching over here, this is basically accounting ethics. I do have an open section in over here. But what you will notice is that these classes have a prerequisite, right? So accounting 1B, which is the equivalent of your accounting 201B. So in your Google Sheet, what I've done is you'll basically, if I kind of scroll over here this way, if I go to my video links, you'll see something here called How to Clear Prerequisites at Irvine Valley College. Right. And in this video, you'll basically find links below about how to submit your transcript, to go through and then to basically go through and then enroll in the classes. Right. We also offer auditing, accounting 275B, which is being taught by Deanna Bowden. Deanna actually also teaches the same class at Cal State Fullerton. But again, this class will not transfer to Cal State Fullerton. So when you're taking classes at IVC, like if you went to the registrar and said, oh, I took 275B, so that should count as accounting 402 at Fullerton, they're going to say, well, it must be April 20th today because you've been smoking some of the hippie lettuce and you're absolutely insane. They will not let you take a 200 series class and let it go through and replace a class at Fullerton. The only transfer classes you can take are accounting 1A and accounting 1B or accounting 1B honors. Does that answer your question? Yeah. Also, too, you can also go to Saddleback. There's Saddleback, there's OCC, there's Santa Ana. The thing I would really want you to, though, to kind of think about, though, is when it comes to the tax courses, these are taught with live Zoom, right? These are on live Zoom. And for tax and intermediate accounting, in my own personal opinion, that is an incredibly important way in terms of how these classes have to go through and be taught. So I would just tell you that if you're going to take something that's online and asynchronous, like, look, my ethics class, I have a lot of information that's in there. I have a lot of video recordings. I have a lot of stuff for you to kind of go through and use. But again, it depends on like what you're looking to get out of a particular class. Right. So it's really about like, if I'm taking reg, would I want to take these classes here with Grinberg? Absolutely. Because I know that you're accounting, what is it, 308 is a combination of both business and individual tax. This would give you a much more broader, deeper dive. Is Barry Gershinovitz still teaching 308 at Fullerton? Who's your tax teacher? Who's your tax teacher at Cal State Fullerton? Does anybody know?
For my tax class, it's Professor Jonathan Durant, but I know
Okay.
Professor Gushinowitz does teach 1 or 2 sections of 308, but then he also teaches like advanced tax.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure that name sounds very familiar. It sounds like he's a former tax partner. Right. And I think for your auditing classes, has anybody ever taken Greg Nihos?
Yeah, he's my auditing professor right now.
When you see Greg, tell him that Bennett says hello. I was actually an associate when he was a manager at Cooper's.
Oh, cool. Okay, I'll let him know.
Small world. Jolie, how can I help you? Am I pronouncing your first name correct? Is it Jolie?
Yeah, yeah,
No
you
way.
got
I think you're lying to me to make me feel better.
no, because it's both Julie and Jolie. You're good
Okay.
with both.
Jolie.
Yeah. So thank you for this session, by the way. Like, it's very, very informative.
No
And
worries.
yeah, and I just wanted to ask. So right now I am a third year, but I'm planning to study for another 2 years. Just because I want to slow it down and actually understand like the things I'm learning. Also, I think I'm good with like units to be able to sit for the exam, but it's just I'm confused because do I only have to sit like before graduation by 6 months, or like since I am spending another 2 years,
Yes,
I can
So,
yeah,
so,
you know.
so the first question I have for you is, do you have a job lined up?
No.
No, that has to be your one and main
Okay.
priority. Okay.
Got it.
I want you to make that your number one priority. Now, if you do, and I'm just going to kind of share some, just give me a second here.
Mhm.
Gotta love that dual factor authentication. Okay. So when it comes to, and again, if you do take a class at IVC, I have basically a group called IVC 30 to CPA, and it's essentially it's a Canvas group. But what I've tried to do basically in this group is I basically have things like sample resumes and things like, what should your resume format be like? This is incredibly critical because you have to, when you're going to meet with a recruiter, they need to know it, just to kind of imagine at a recruiter like an NFL owner or an NFL general manager. We have these different needs for, like this particular year. And so they're trying to figure out, okay, when are you going to go through and be graduating basically from Cal State Fullerton? And are you going to be eligible to kind of go through and basically sit for the exam? Or basically have the units to basically be licensed. By the way, the recruiters are also trying to figure this out too. I had about a 20-minute phone call with the guy who runs recruiting for Deloitte, kind of explaining to him like what's happening and with the whole like 150 going down to 120. And so again, like a lot of people are trying to figure this out, but that's something that's very important about going through and doing this. And Jolie, what type of part-time jobs have you had previously prior to, what kind of jobs have you had so far in your career? Like professional, what type of stuff have you done?
Like jobs, I
Yeah.
mean, I've worked at Taco Bell for like 3 years, and
Oh,
then
okay, then we'll stop right there.
right?
Jolie, were you ever yelled at by customers? Did customers come and say, "Oh, like this burrito is terrible"?
100%.
Yes.
100%.
Okay. You know how to de-escalate conflicts, right? And so
Yes.
when you're applying for firms, you want to put those kind of things on there because then they're going to know that you have that client or that customer service mentality, right? That's that's really, really important to go through and include. I have like students will say, "Oh no, I'm not going to put that on there." Oh no, you absolutely want to put that on there. Now, I'm not telling you to, if you really want to deal with crazy customers, you could probably become a flight attendant on Spirit Airlines. But I'm not sure if anybody wants to fly to Spirit, right? Hopefully, we're going to be out of Chapter 11 soon, but no one wants to go through and do that. But the other thing I mentioned earlier, like so at Cal State Fullerton, and I'm pretty sure I sent out invitations to these. But what I have is I have about 35 hours of recordings with not the final four accounting firms, but with area accounting firms, with RSM, Fraser, HCBT, CBiz, their different email links, BDO, Baker Tilly, Grant Thornton, Anderson, Conrad, Wines. And I also have meetings from prior semesters. I have literally had students who are attending. One student I know attended UCI. He watched every BDO interview, and he then basically went out and used this to get himself a job. You have to be extremely proactive when it comes to recruiting. One of the things too is how many of you have been to meet the firms at Cal State Fullerton? How many of you have been there? Okay, so one of the things I didn't make it this spring because I was with my younger son. We were at an event, but what I always try to go through and do is that this is from fall. Let's see if it plays.
Everybody, welcome to the first. We got Jimmy, we got Chloe, and we're like, oh my goodness, this is like the biggest meet the firms I think we have ever seen. I think it's more than 600, 900. Is it 1,000? Wow, look at that. Oh my goodness.
Okay, if you're not going in there fully prepared, that's going to be an absolute disaster, right? These meet the firms of if you've been to these before, it's usually like these are an absolute madhouse. Cal State Fullerton, just by the sheer number of students that Cal State Fullerton has, I have heard from every single recruiter that these are by far like basically the absolute best recruiting events just because of the sheer number of students that are coming in, right? Chapman, a fraction of the size, USC, a fraction of the size. So, but when you go into these meetings, you have to have a game plan. You have to know who's going to be there. You have to basically have a plan in terms of going through and finding and connecting. And by the way, if I attend Meet the Firms, will I walk out of there with a job? The answer is no. You have to be going to speaker events. By the way, Soham, are you guys have any more speaker events this semester at Fullerton?
No, we're actually done as of last week.
Right, but how many did you guys have during the semester?
I would say around 40, 45.
Wow, 45 speaker events.
Yes, yeah.
Dude, that's insane. That's like
Yeah.
right there. By the way, thank you for doing that for the students. That's amazing. That right there is, these are the types of events that you want to be going to, because you want to kind of go and not just go and watch the speaker, but you want to try to go up after and start having like a meaningful conversation, right? You want to be looking up on LinkedIn. You want to be talking to friends and family that might be in accounting. You want to basically be really kind of going through and just really get out there in terms of recruiting. Now, Julie, I know you asked me the question earlier, which is not, I'm not answering your question, right? But hopefully the recruiting side tells you everything. But the way it works is that just by, if I go through and in terms of right over here. So Jolie, if you're going to be within, so when do you plan on having your bachelor's degree by?
Yeah, spring of 2027.
Okay.
Mhm.
So you would apply to sit for the exam in December of 2027. That's what you would be doing. So you would apply to sit in basically, or sorry, if you're graduating in spring of 27, you could apply in December of 2026. That's what you would be doing.
Okay, that makes sense. And then thank you for the insight on like trying to find like an internship or a job first. Like I'll
don't
definitely-
you also have to understand too, is like
Mhm.
not about the recruiting game as a long one. It does not happen overnight, right?
Right.
It happens with, you have to go through, you've got to go through, like, you know, and I love going to Meet the Firms just because I get to connect with like a lot of my former students. I have a lot of my former students that are now working at like different firms. There's some pretty funny stories of some of the things I've kind of done at Meet the Firms for my students. But I love going there. I also love trying to help out. And it's always like when I see, like, my whole thing is, I mean, I love to teach accounting and it's really fun, but helping students get jobs is much more important to me, because I know how daunting it is to go through this recruiting process. It's brutal, but you have to really be vigilant about it. And remember that it's not like, when it comes to recruiting, it's not just the grades, it's who you are as a person. So Jolie, the fact that you've worked at Taco Bell is amazing, and you got to leverage that fully. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah,
Sure.
thank you so much. Thank you.
No worries. Okay, Layla, you had a question. I think you were the first one that had the hand up.
Yes. So kind of going off of what she said about like if you're graduating with a bachelor's, so will be graduating spring of 26. When would you say I should apply to sit? Like that summer or that fall?
Do you have a job lined up?
I have two internships. I have one this summer and then one in summer of 26. So
Nice.
right after I graduate.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
So I would apply, and if you're graduating spring 26, I would apply in December 25. Now, once you accept your full-time offer at your firm, they are more than likely going to give you access to CPA review, right? If you were to go and buy this like on your own, I can probably get you a price of about $2,000 for UWorld. That's what I was able to get a little bit earlier. The price kind of goes up and down, but for the platinum course, that's how much they'll discount it by. That's what they were doing at the last Meet the Firms. But you know, once you accept your offer at that firm, they're then going to basically go through, and then they'll provide, most of them will provide Becker to you. The one thing I would tell you, and again, I would refer you to watch that interview I did with Ninja, just because we talk a lot about one of the challenges of Becker is because I don't really, based on what I've heard from students, it's not adequately preparing them for the task-based simulations. And that's my opinion based on, and I'm not saying that that's actually what it is, but you need to go through and check it out. And UWorld will allow you to basically do a free trial or a free preview. So that's what I would go through and do. But again, I would apply to sit as early as possible. And like, look, while you're in school, it's going to be the best time to kind of go through and study for bar.
Okay, and then I know that some firms like, they'll ask on like your resume and eligibility because they ask me like every single time I was talking to them, like, oh, when are you CPA?
Well, the reason why they're asking you that, right? Again, it kind of goes to the draft board. And if my client is Tilly's in Orange County, right? That's my client. I think they're a publicly traded company. They are in Orange County. If my client is Tilly's and Tilly's needs to have an audit staff on it, and they want you to kind of go there, then I need to make sure that you have the 150 done by whatever like that particular date is, right? So that is why they are asking that question. And all the firms will be asking this because in their mind, they have to know, okay, when are you going to be available to come and work for us?
Okay, so say, if you're sitting on it and you say you have maybe like 130 units, right? You're graduating, you're applying to sit. Would you, I guess, kind of what
Well,
I'm
basically,
thinking
like
is,
you're not really lying to them because like now the way this is going to work is it's going to shove down to 120, right? So I think that you can kind of say that, yeah, well, I mean, I'll be, I'm graduating in spring 26 and I'll have my units done. Right now, if you needed to get to 150 really quickly because you register at a bunch of different community colleges and take classes, sure. If you need to take more units, you can always take them at a community college. Go to
Okay.
OCC, go to IBC, wherever you want to go.
Okay, so I know that some say like, oh, like 150 before we want to like put you on the higher date.
But that's again, the whole thing is changing, right? And it depends.
Got it.
If it's a big four firm, they're going to definitely want you to have the 150. The reason why they want you to have the 150 is they do not want you to be taking classes when you're working for them full time.
Got it. Okay.
When you're working for a big four firm, that sounds like an evil laugh. It kind of is. You're going to be working a lot of hours, right? So therefore, by the way, when you're interviewing, why do you want to go through and work for Jolie? I'm glad I'm making you laugh on that one. Basically, when you're going to go and work for one of these firms, the biggest thing is you'll always hear them say this is like, well, I want to work there because of the people, right? And why is it the people? It's because you're going to be spending so many hours with them every week that really should be your greatest determination or your greatest, the greatest thing as far as, oh yeah, like this is why I want to work for this firm. It's because of the people, right? That's what's so, that's really what your answer should really be, is that when you're choosing these firms, it's really about the people. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it does. Thank you.
Perfect. Sabina, I believe you are next. What can I answer for you?
Yeah, my question is that, so in terms of internships, I did get an internship for the summer, but it's
Cool.
not at a firm.
Okay.
But I believe my supervisor is a CPA, licensed CPA still, and it's
The question is, are they actively licensed?
I have to check on that, but
Right,
most
so if you
people-
ever want to check on that, right? So if I went back over here to our California Board of Accountancy, and I want to see if I'm a consumer and I want to basically verify a license, and if I do like a license lookup, and let's see if has Tchaikovsky lost his CPA license. Let's go find out. Okay, so right over here, and we'll just do last name Tchaikovsky. Do a little search, and oh, Bennett, yeah, here we go. I'm still clear, and I'm good through June of 2027. How exciting. Yeah, so this is how you can kind of go through and tell that if someone is an actively licensed CPA or not.
Okay, so
Right, and the other thing I was gonna say too, one of the things over here is you will also go through and see the experience completed is A, meaning that I could sign off on audit or attest reports. But you know, by the way, too, Sabina, if they are licensed in a different state, that's okay. As long as they're actively licensed, the Board of Accountancy will accept it for the general experience, right? So they can sign off on your experience for that period of time. If they refuse to, let me know, and I'm more than happy to give you some language to share with them.
okay. So assuming if after I check and they are licensed,
Mhm.
this is more for like my internship itself is
I would just
course.
approach them and say, hey, do you mind signing off on my general experience, right? And
So you can just get general experience.
yes, and because if it's audit, it's a lot more, it's gonna be like a lot more like in depth. And let me find this video. Hold on.
Do you get signed off for internship experience too, or
Sure.
just full time?
Yeah,
Okay.
because you can sign up, they'll count, you just need a year of experience, right? And that could be over internships. The internship I worked at Coopers and Lybrand, now PwC, that also, you know, basically that's also, oh, here we go. Okay, so if I look down here, I have links to the different levels of experience. And if you look over here in terms of the general experience, right? Listen to this. General accounting experience may, right, big word, may include any type of service or advice involving the use of accounting, attest, compilation, management, advisory, financial advisory, tax, or consulting skills. To qualify, experience shall have been performed in accordance with applicable professional standards, right? This is for a general experience, right? That's all you need. When it comes to attest, right? Here we go. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. Look at this. This looks like a legal document because it is. And why is it like this? It's because when you're signing off on an audit opinion, that is a very, very different responsibility level to the public, right? When you're signing off on an audit, you're basically verifying, or basically verifying is not the right word to say. I know that the auditing professors would get mad at me for saying that, but you're basically performing testing to make sure that, you know, what's in there is reasonable. So when you go through and look at this, it is very, very focused, right? So to get signed off on this, which I used to call Form E, a lot different than the general experience, right? So the person you're working for this summer, and I think, by the way, it's great that you have that internship, non-accounting, or if it's basically at a non-accounting firm, I think it's
It's
great.
a private industry. Private.
Perfect. You should
Yeah.
try to, I would try, and when do you graduate from Fullerton?
Spring 2026 in
Okay.
May. Yeah.
Right, so you probably want to try to, when you go to fall, you want to try to leverage what you've learned here. Maybe you say you're graduating in December 26, so you can maybe try to get something for summer 26. So
Oh,
that's what I would try to kind of go through and do. But yeah, they should be willing to sign off as long as they're actively licensed.
all right.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks.
Cool. Rovan, what's happening?
It's good to see you again.
Good to see you.
I just have a quick question about the internship's availability, especially for the upcoming fall, because I know in your slides that like in the summer they're fully like done for Big Four.
So just remember, like if you want to go Big Four, right? If that's what your goal is, the Final Four, right? It's like we're like an NCAA 2A team, right? When you hit the Final Four, if your goal is to hit a Big Four accounting firm, for Irvine, right? The competition is absolutely insane. If you have family that live up in San Jose, it might be a little bit easier to get a job up in San Jose than it's going to be to get a job in Irvine. It can sometimes be a little bit easier to get a job in LA than in Irvine. Why is Irvine so tough? Everybody wants to work in Irvine, right? Because it's Orange County. Live at home, save money. But what I would just kind of tell you is that you have to be, when it comes to recruiting for Big Four accounting firms, and again, I don't want to be the one to tell you that you can't do it. I'm not trying to say that it's going to be impossible to essentially, you know, not do it. But when I had a Big Four recruiter come and talk to my accounting 1A class, and when she said they're interviewing in August for summer 27, that to me is insane. And now there might be some internships that do open up, but again, like I wouldn't say like, look, by the way, too, could you work at a firm like RSM, or could you be working at BDO or one of these other firms for a few years and then go into Big Four? The answer is sure. But I can honestly share with you, if you basically graduate from Fullerton, you get a job at a, you know, RSM, Frazier, you know, you get a job at one of these firms and you become a CPA, that's going to help you essentially with, you know, full-time employment opportunities later on. And there's another video that I have on, and I apologize for, you know, constantly, I'm not trying to promote my own channel, but there is something that you may want to watch. So this is about an hour and 20 minute. I break all the YouTube rules because like this video will be like 2 hours and I should literally cut it down into snippets, but I just don't go that way. So this is basically me interviewing a recruiter and kind of talking about like, when you leave public accounting, like what is that like, right? What are the different kind of things that you want to kind of keep in mind when you're kind of going through and doing this? Just gonna put this down here. So again, it's really comes down to if you want Big Four. And by the way, so Robin, again, when do you graduate?
I might be graduating spring 2026, but I know we've had conversations of like trying to push it to like December, or
Yeah.
like try to have like one more semester in.
Yeah, I mean, getting into Big Four, you might be able to get a winter internship possibly in LA. But again, there's a lot of really good firms that are out there, right? And I think that if you go through, and have you watched any of these videos of the different interviews I've done with accounting firms?
No, it's my first time.
Okay. So I'm pretty sure that these were made available to the Accounting Society. If you want to get a link to this, just send me an email to the IVC30 to CPA and say, hey, Bennett, can you send me the recruiting videos? I'll be more than happy to kind of go with you and share them, right? Just on that note as well, I also have an AI application whereby I took all of these different recruiting videos as well as other information, and I basically uploaded this into an AI application. So Layla, give me a question to ask about recruiting.
Oh, putting me on the spot there.
Come on, you're my helper today. You're like totally helping me out. I really appreciate it.
Like
Also,
to ask.
wait, by the way, you also went to Newport Harbor, right?
I did.
Yeah, my son's varsity volleyball team, they defeated Newport Harbor last night, so I feel a little bit sorry for you. So you know.
Oh, okay, rivalry. Okay, I feel ya.
There you go. So give me a good recruiting question.
Like to ask a recruiter?
Yeah, just about interviewing, anything recruiting related.
I guess. What are some things that you like about your company culture, I guess?
I mean, actually, it's an interesting question. So here you go. That basically people appreciate a positive company culture, open communication, supportive environment, inclusively diversity. So there you go. Like this, and that's also, and the reason why I have students use this are like, what are some behavioral questions that I can prepare for. So these are different types of questions you may get on interviews, right? And you got to be careful because you don't want to recognize, you don't want to memorize answers and give them. You want to have your answers be really, really genuine. So this is, again, something that when you're kind of giving these different, types of answers, just kind of be mindful of it. But yeah, but if you want access to any, for what I'm showing you guys up here, I'm more than happy to send these over to you. I also have apps for intermediate, financial, and managerial. So always fun and exciting, and it's fed with my stuff. So it's not going to be hopefully too crazy of answers. Okay. So Rowan, did I answer your questions?
Yes, you did. I appreciate it. Thank you.
No worries, man. Peter, how can I help you?
I'm good. Thank you for taking your time out of your day.
Sure.
So I have a question, since this has been a very confusing since 150 units is going away. Is that going to be officially take effect next summer, July 2026?
No, there's gonna be a phase out period, right? So they won't do something like, when you look at this, you can kind of see the current credit legacy pathway is probably going to end at the end of 2028, right?
Oh,
So this is, when you look at this, it's like, and again, I'm going to include this. I'm going to send this over to Soham, this presentation, then he can send it out to you guys who attended. When you're going through though, and looking at these different legacy pathways or whatever else, it's there, I've had conversations with the Board of Accountancy, and they're asking me, is like, well, Bennett, could you create a certificate that encompasses the different classes so that a student can come in, and then could that count not necessarily as a master's, but they're trying to figure out ways, because they realize that when the CBA told me that Irvine Valley College offers more accounting courses than UCI. I mean, that's absolutely insane. I mean, that's for an undergraduate level, that's crazy. We do not offer more accounting courses than Fullerton, but when we're offering this many for, basically for students to kind of go through and take, the California community colleges have really kind of taken on a lot of the accounting education in California, because we get so many students that basically come back and wanting to kind of take classes at night or whatever else may have you. So again, it's one of those things where, Peter, I mean, I don't think anybody knows, and if they say they know, they don't. But I would the way I would really do it is just apply to sit for the exam as soon as possible. And then honestly, and again, if the law becomes law, then you as an accounting major, you would basically be able to get away with, 120 semester units with 2 years of experience.
So how does 2 years experience will work? Because I was originally going to go my master's. However, since my accounting
Yeah. So what I've heard about them. So again, with the master's degree, right, I would want you to go for free. Get somebody else to pay for it, like Deloitte, right? At UCI or Fullerton, get a scholarship. Again, the master's degree is great, but the master's degree, I know that in their conversations, they said, if you have a bachelor's plus a master's in accounting, you would only need 1 year of experience. And I think this is also going to be post-implementation. What they're trying to do is to basically go back to when I was a CPA back a long time ago, which was bachelor's degree, 2 years of experience, you're a CPA.
Oh, okay. That was my original plan, but now, since I'm graduating spring 2026,
By the way, Peter, most importantly, I'm going to ask this question.
Go ahead.
Do you have a job lined up?
Not yet, but I'm still looking for internships.
Okay. Internships for this summer are going to be incredibly difficult to find, right?
Right. But
if you do a master's degree, right, if you want to kind of re-enter into the recruiting pipeline, you want to basically get a master's. And I think if you do get a master's, if Deloitte sponsors it, I think they offer you a full-time position. I would just tell you with the master's, Again, if you're using that as to basically spend more time, I've also had students who have gone the 150 and they've used that to basically take you going to community colleges and getting the rest of their units done. They've also done it that way as well. But again, I would just really, I don't want you to go into debt that is unnecessary.
I see, but that was not. Oh, I wasn't finished that, but
Sure.
I was actually going now towards the bachelor's. I was
Good.
between spring 2026.
Okay.
But it's since the law is going to take effect, you're saying I might not need 150. But I just declared my minor concentration just in case if it doesn't
Yeah,
pass.
but Peter, though, I mean, here's the other thing too, is that if you get a bachelor's degree, can you take the other 30 semester units at a community college? The answer is absolutely yes. Right, the Board of Accountancy, like Cal State Fullerton will only take 60 semester units, or any Cal State will only take a maximum of 2 years from any community college. To get your bachelor's degree, you're going to have to at least spend 60 semester units at that full 4-year university. When it comes to the 150, many students basically take that last year and do it at a community college. Why do they do it to get the 150? Because it's $46 per unit.
I transferred already. I already met the max 70. So
Oh, good. Awesome.
I can't go back basically.
You can always go back if you want to take more classes at a community college. You know, it doesn't matter. Like, so it's not about like when you, this is actually, I'm glad you're bringing up this point. And when you're going through and applying to the California Board of Accountancy, you're going to be sending them your transcripts, not only from Cal State Fullerton, right? And Tatiana, I'm just going to use you right now as another example. So Tatiana went to Northern Arizona University. She then went to OCC, and now she's at Cal State Fullerton. So Tatiana, when she goes to apply to the Board of Accountancy, she's going to send separate electronic transcripts from Cal State Fullerton, Orange Coast, and NAU. She's going to send it to from all of those different places. It doesn't matter what Cal State Fullerton has accepted or has not accepted, right? What matters is, do you have a bachelor's degree, which will basically show on your Cal State Fullerton transcript, and then ultimately, do you have the 150? But remember, again, they only care about the 150 once you're ready to become licensed, right? For sitting for the exam, it's 120. For licensure, it's going to be the 150. If you wanted to, you could get your bachelor's from Fullerton and you could keep going to any California community colleges if you needed it to take more units. It's irrelevant as to whether or not Fullerton accepts the units. Does that make sense?
Yes and no, because I already declared my minor concentration already. So I really
yeah, so that's between you and Cal State Fullerton, right?
Yeah.
Your minor that's between you and Fullerton, right? But say for example, so Layla, she's going to graduate from Cal State Fullerton with 120 semester units. If Layla says, you know, I want to spend my money going to Europe and having a great time, I don't want to spend money on my undergrad, I don't want to give Fullerton any more money, or I don't want to deal with the parking, I'm going to go to a community college instead to get the remaining 30 semester units, you can absolutely do that. Because again, the only thing that's really being awarded to you by Cal State Fullerton is your bachelor's degree, right? That you absolutely need your bachelor's degree to sit within 6 months to sit for the exam. You need a bachelor's degree to become licensed, but those other additional units can basically be taken anywhere.
Oh, okay. And so I was more thinking about looking more at internships sometime in the spring 2026. So do you have like any suggestions to firm to go with? Should I go with more midterm firms or the small firms?
You have to be recruiting right now. What does that mean? LinkedIn profile is done and fully up to date.
Yeah.
Resume fully ready to go.
Oh, you ready to go?
And you've got to be also, I would really be saying, doing your research on the different accounting firms. You could sit down and watch 35 hours of meetings. Like literally, this is me talking with Andrea with RSM for like an hour. Probably is going to be better on ×2 speed. But when I hold these meetings, right? They're literally like, this is Fraser, which is a firm that's like literally right off the 22 and the 5. This is Ryan, the partner at Fraser, who I've known for many years. Natalie Will is the other person going through, and he's kind of going through and answering different questions, basically with students and everybody else. That was me up in Seattle while I was holding the meeting. So there you go, always fun. But again, you have to go through and do your research on these different firms. Again, I have a lot of, if you do take classes at IVC, and you want to be a part of IVC 30 to CPA, right? I have a lot of different things that are in here. When UWorld CPA review was basically Roger's CPA review. Let me pull this up. So this is basically a guidebook I wrote back, and I want to say it was 2016, but most of it is still extremely relevant, which is talking about how do firms go through and recruit, right? What's the structure of firms? What are they going through and looking for, right? What are these firms basically looking for? And then what you're going to have to kind of go through and do. So I'm not telling you to change yourself in terms of who you are, but you need to know what these firms are looking for in terms of their candidates, right? And again, it's not going to be all grades or the classes you've taken, right? So Jolie, who was on if I worked at a boba shop, if I worked at In-N-Out, if I worked at Chick-fil-A, if I've worked at Target, if I've worked at Walmart, any of these different places where I've gone through and I've worked, all of these are going to be great experiences because you've had that customer service experience. And that is incredibly important for recruiting. Because remember, it's not about the grades. It's about who you are as a person and how you are going to be interacting with the other employees as well as their clients.
Oh, I was the client.
Yeah. So you have to really just make sure you got your resume.
Okay.
I know that Fullerton has a great career center.
Oh, absolutely. I actually meeting my business careers today, actually.
Good.
So I have my resumes, my LinkedIn update to go.
Yeah, you have, and again, all those things are really critical because again,
Right.
That's what you have to kind of be ready for. Okay,
This
so-
kind of have to be right. Basically, have everything ready to go. Just do the company research.
Yeah, you
like-
need, and you have to be genuine to who you are, and like you're kind of interviewing them as much as they're interviewing you. But like, remember this too, and this is what I said at the very beginning of this. We are in a different environment. The consulting jobs have dried up; those are gone. So a lot of students that are basically at USC, UCLA, Berkeley, which have very high brand names, those students are going into accounting. I had a conversation during my office hours. By the way, if you ever want to come in and have a conversation with me, you can find my office hours on my IVC faculty website. I have Zoom. Basically, for the next few weeks, it's on Zoom on Tuesdays from like 9 to 12:30 on Zoom. What I would tell you is that I had 2 students who were at Haas Berkeley, right? Haas. This is like one of the top 5 business schools in the country, don't have internships this summer. It's bad. Okay. So you have to be extremely proactive when it comes to recruiting. And that's why I started out this presentation. And why many of you, when you're asking me about and I'm not trying to belittle you about like your questions, but this is the most important question that you need to be able to answer for yourself. And there are a lot of resources out there. You can find out, by the way, are we all familiar? What is the PCAOB? What's the PCAOB?
PCA, that's actually, I'm not too familiar.
Okay, this is called the Public Company Accounting Oversight Board, right? And this is a website whereby you can basically find out who is the auditor for a particular publicly traded company. Why is this so important? If I'm going through a meeting, say with Haskell and White, RSM, I can find out who their clients are, right? A lot of things I can do, a lot of research I can do prior to walking in the door, walking in to meet the firms. if you're walking into that huge room with all those people, because I know that Fall Meet the Firms, which is probably undergoing planning right now, that's going to be a huge event. I'm hopefully going to try to make it this year. It's going to be a huge event. I always call it sneaking into the firms. That'll be a huge event, but you want to do your diligence before you walk in there, because like everybody's going to go to the big four, but you want to go to other areas. Very important to do. So, Peter, does that help?
No, actually very helpful. It's just I find it very confusing. I mean, I actually been to quite a few interviews and I noticed the times that they'll tell me that if you don't have meet the certain GPAs, then you're never gonna meet up at internship. So that's why I was like,
Go to a different firm. I mean, like the GPA, like how do you get rid of a GPA? You take and pass the CPA exam.
oh, you passed the CPA exams.
I mean, that's more important to me than it's like the GPA to me. It's if you don't have a good GPA, a partner in an accounting firm once told me this. He basically said, look, if you don't have a good GPA, there better be a good explanation, meaning that I was working 80 hours a week. I was, raising a family, whatever else, then that can kind of explain it away. But again, it's really about the grades are important. They're not everything important. But again, like when you're interviewing, it's like, how are you coming across, all those different types of things? And I really think that if you do spend the time with those videos that I've referenced, again, that should help you. So
Perfectly. Are you gonna be sending out the resource at the
yes,
end
I'm going to send out, I'm basically going to send out this, and then I can also send out a link. Basically, I include in the link to the pre-meet the firms meetings if you want to watch those videos.
Thank you so much. This has been super helpful.
No worries. Joel, you were next, I believe. Sorry for making you wait. What's up, dude?
It's all good. Do you mind opening my CPA map? I just want to verify the information on here. Everything in the bright blue. Essentially, I only need 15 units of accounting and then the 3 or 4 units of auditing or accounting ethics. And then I would technically fulfill all the requirements, right? Is basically what it's saying.
Did you do this or did I do this?
I color coordinated it because I was having
Okay,
trouble
did
figuring it out.
I do your mapping though, or no? Was this
Oh
me?
yeah, you did it.
Okay. So, yeah, I mean, like that's basically when it comes to, let's see here. Okay, so right now I'm showing you having 97 units. Is that correct total?
Yeah, I still have around 2 years left
Okay, yeah,
to finish everything, but
right.
I guess like specific wise.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I mean, you're basically with what you're doing right over here, you're essentially like you're on track in terms of going through and you're taking the lower division classes, you're basically getting through the you're basically now are you taking an accounting this semester?
Yeah.
What classes are you taking this semester?
Right now I'm taking intermediate, so 301A.
Okay, so and then you're okay, so these are future. Okay, so yeah, so you're going to be having to take accounting 307, 308, and then 2 electives, right? So that's going to give you another 12 semester units of accounting, right? So under the current guidelines, you would need another 3 semester units, because if you have 9 here, if you're taking another 12 units at Cal State Fullerton, but obviously under the new guidelines in terms of what's changing, more than likely that will actually be enough in terms of what you have.
Okay. And I guess following up with that, I know you kind of mentioned it already, but I guess just to clarify.
By the way, Joel,
would
I'm going to
you
ask you, by the way, just before I go any further, do you have a job lined up?
Yes, I have 2 internships and I technically have a full-time job secured with one of them.
Congratulations. Okay, go ahead and back to your question.
Um, would you recommend focusing just because I know the requirement is changing, so would you recommend focusing on getting the 120 first, or a bachelor's first, and then finishing the exams, and then if we need to go back and finish the other 30 units to get to 150?
Yes.
Okay.
The only way my answer to that would be no, is that if you did not have a job lined up, but the fact that you have a job lined up, again, congratulations, that's absolutely fantastic. That's really what is probably, if anything is coming out of this call, that, you know, or this presentation, is that the importance of getting a job. I cannot state this enough, and it's just because I get a lot of students who reach out to me, and the harder conversations are the ones that are about to graduate. They do not have a job. That's a really, really tough conversation. And, you know, if you can't get an accounting job, I'm not telling you to go work at Chipotle or Target or one of these other places or In-N-Out, but honestly, those types of jobs where you're getting like that customer interaction can be absolutely critical. So that's really what I would also kind of tell you as well, in terms of like, okay, how do we, you know, and again, it's really the job part of this is by far the most important thing.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Sabina.
Oh yeah, hi. In terms of this job experiences you talked about, would other types of experiences, like, I don't know, tutoring students or younger children also?
Sure. You've
help
gotten,
too?
basically, you've had issues with, probably had to deal with parents, right?
Yeah.
And parents aren't fun to deal with, right? That's why I will never teach at a K through 12, because then the parents feel free to contact the professors. If a parent contacts me as a community college professor or a college professor, I just say, hey dude, it's FERPA. I can't talk to you. Sorry. See you later. Yeah, you have to deal with parents. Parents are crazy. But again, and also, Sabina, the other thing I would tell you too, right? If you're dealing with, if you're in, and this is something I have like conversations with. So one of the, I'm just going to bring up volleyball again, is that one of the students who was from Berkeley, he was at a volleyball club in San Jose, and I don't think he had even thought about it. I go, dude, you need to go through and talk to those parents that you were involved in a team sport. And you need to see what kind of networking you can kind of go through and do. It's really important to be talking to your parents' friends, family, friends, relatives about helping them get you a job, right? And this is really where the fact that all of you chose to go into accounting is awesome, right? The classes are horrible, right? Taking intermediate accounting is like, oh, like when I took intermediate at UCSB, that was harder than any course I ever took in law school, like hands down. Intermediate accounting is brutal, right? The classes are really tough, but it's one of the things that when you're done, it just opens up so many more opportunities for you. That's really what you really, it's really why you do accounting. It's just basically, it's one of those things where it's just like, it's a great start. It's one of the only business type majors after your accounting undergraduate career where it can really lead to something concrete. I am not saying that working for an accounting firm is the cat's pajamas, right? It's not everything. And for me personally, when I went through and was working in public accounting, my attitude was horrible. I lasted like, I had to be there for 2 years. I was there for 2 years. But then like looking back on it, there's a lot of different things I would have done differently in terms of like my working. But it was a great experience. And, you know, it's a great experience for you to basically work in public accounting for a few years. Where you end up going to work at a firm is really important in terms of as to if you like the people or not. That's really what you want to be looking for. And because it's just like your goal should be to become a CPA. Because once you have that CPA license, it's just going to provide you with the ultimate amount of mobility in terms of your career. You will literally be able to go through and to reinvent yourself multiple times over because you have that license. So that's really what I would kind of go through and share with you as far as like the experience and everything else goes. So again, but I would also try to get that kind of job where you're actually going to be kind of going through and you know, where can I get a job where I'm going through and getting a lot of different interactions. So what other questions can I answer for you?
I had a question.
Sure.
So I'm gonna be getting my bachelor's degree in the next couple weeks for
Yeah.
this month.
Do you have a job lined up?
So
You have a job lined up? Kyle, do you have a job lined up?
I currently have a part-time job that's not accounting, but
Okay.
I do have 2 internships that I'm interviewing for.
Okay.
So hopefully I can get those.
For this summer, or when are they for?
It's for the summer, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Wow, that's crazy for accounting firms.
Well, it's not an accounting firm, it's more like it's more the smaller firm.
Okay.
So I'm gonna be applying for the CPA, but when I apply, do I put that I'm contingent or non-contingent?
Well, if you don't have your bachelor's degree yet, when you're making the application, then it would be contingent. Because if you're submitting your transcript right now, the biggest question is on your transcript, does it show you've been awarded a bachelor's degree?
Okay, got it.
That's all.
Okay, all right, thank you.
And have you purchased a CPA review course yet?
No, not yet.
Okay, so if you're buying it on your own, the ones I would really be looking at would essentially be the ones that I would say will probably be the ones I would be looking at would be UWorld, Ninja, Becker, Surgeon. But again, you want to get a free trial of each of them prior to going through and doing purchasing. The good thing about Ninja, it's like on a subscription, like it's like $90 a month, I think, per part. So, but if you want information or if you want a discount on UWorld, let me know and I can put you in touch with the rep.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
What other questions? It's been great. It was fun.
So I actually had a question. You said the task-based simulations on Becker weren't as good as like the ones on the other service platforms like
So here's what I would do. This is, and again, I'm going to say this allegedly, right? Everything I'm telling you right now is my opinion, right? And what I would do is I would get a free trial of Ninja, get a free trial of UWorld, and compare the task-based simulations between the two. They may have gotten better. The thing I would share with you though, Soham, is that did you take 301A and 301B at Cal State Fullerton?
Yeah, I did.
Were all of your exam questions multiple choice?
No, there were like, for my 301B class, they were like fill in the blank questions. So we had to do.
Did they have any computational though? Were there any?
Yes.
Of them? Okay, good. Okay, so that really, if you took, and again, if you had a challenging instructor who really made you like learn the material pretty deeply through, and again, the way I do it is through problem-based learning, then when you go to task-based simulations, it should be a lot better. What I would do in terms of Becker, right, is that again, are you using Becker right now?
Yeah, so I'm using Becker right now.
So what's a part of these, like, so, and you're studying for FAR, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So what's a section that you're in terms of FAR, what's a section that you're learning right now in the Becker modules?
I think I'm just on the first one. I just started like last week.
Okay.
I activated my subscription.
Okay. So you obviously have a job at an accounting firm. Congratulations.
Yeah. Thank you.
So if I go to FAR, right, and I'm just going to pull up one of these things, is that okay. So say if I go over here to inventory and I look at the task-based simulations, right? And what I would be doing is I would look at, after you've kind of gone through the material on Becker, then I would kind of just go through and take a look at UWorld or at Ninja.
Okay.
And what I would kind of do is to say, well, which ones are showing up on, you know, are they the same questions? Are they different? What I've heard from students is when they're using Becker, that the questions seem to be iterations of each other instead of unique questions. And again, I would talk to, I'm sure you're on, so Salami, you're on Accounting Society or VAP,
Accounting Society.
right? So I'm sure you have students that are right now, you have friends of yours that are taking or are studying for the CPA exam right now, correct?
Yes.
I would talk to them about what they're, if they've taken the exam. You never want to ask a student what was the question you got, because that violates the AICPA rules. But what you do want to ask them is like, okay, did you feel that Becker adequately prepared you? And that's really the bigger issue.
Got it. Okay, thank you.
Sure. Michael.
Just want to thank you again for just devoting your time and to all of us and helping us
No
out.
worries, man.
We really appreciate it.
Get a job and pass the exam. That's
Oh
all.
yeah.
That's what I want you guys. That's what I want you guys to do. Is like, hey, man, just it's a rough economy right now, right? So if you have a job, be very grateful for it. Do not get fired, right? Hopefully, you're working in audit or in tax, right? Get your experience. Do great work when you're out there at those firms. Get your CPA license, and then go from there. Just the worst thing that can happen is that you show up to meet the firms, and if I know you, I'm probably going to bust your chops about not passing the CPA exam. So, and it's hard because if you're working at Ernst & Young and you're working 70 to 75 hours a week, you're absolutely exhausted, which is really why you want to be like getting the exam out of the way as quickly as possible. And trust me, you'll feel a lot better once it's done.
I actually like had a question about like kind of like my timeline.
Mhm.
But kind of the tentative plan I have right now is I can technically graduate next year.
You have a job lined up?
Around this time, so
Let's step
no.
back. Do you have a job lined up?
No future job lined up.
Okay, don't graduate. Delay, because it's going to be easier for you to recruit while you are a student than it is
that's
to be when you're, because like once you like, and trust me on this, once you've graduated, it is very, very difficult to find work. Okay, it's going to be a huge challenge. And I've had conversations with students. It's like, okay, you've graduated. What are some things you can do? One of those things you can do is pass the CPA exam. And that'll set you apart from other people. But it's like, you want to be recruiting while you're in school. Like, Mike, are you involved at all with the Accounting Society or Beta Alpha Psi in a leadership position?
Yeah, I'm part of the board in Accounting Society.
Okay, good. Right, so you want to try to leverage that basically into different types of opportunities. And what kind of part-time or full-time work have you had while you're in school or in high school?
I've done private tutoring. I've also done like tutoring at a math tutoring facility, and I also had like a very short winter internship for both tax and audit this like very recently, but it was like really short.
Okay.
Yeah.
I would stay in school until you have a job lined up.
Yeah. So like the thing about that is I can postpone it by maybe like one semester. I don't know if that would be enough time, but a lot of firms, like at least like the ones I'm interested in, they always ask me like when's your CPA eligibility date? Because if it's like too early, like if you graduate, then you're basically ineligible to get an internship.
That's
So
why Michael, that's why I would say that, like, so for example, if you're going to be, so when would you normally be getting your bachelor's degree?
exactly from 1 year from now, if
Okay,
everything
I would then say that you're going to be graduating in December of 26, right? And that way you could potentially apply for a winter internship in spring 26, and then a summer internship for the summer of 2026.
Yeah. I also really agree with that. I think I was talking to this one firm and they're saying that potentially, because I've talked to them for many times around like the recruiter and all that. So but I have not got a position with them. But they said that if you do decide to like not delay your graduation, and like just graduate like exactly 1 year from now, then you can go ahead and apply for the staff position.
Dude, I would not, whoever that firm is, I don't trust Elmo. So I don't agree with what they said. That's really, really risky. And that's only one firm. There's many firm there's many firm out in this, there's many different firms that are out there. That's not solid advice. Usually Soham, I'm guessing he did an internship with, did you do one with one of the Final Four?
Yeah, so I did an internship with EY and then one with Forbes and Mazars.
So yeah, so Soham did an internship with EY. I'm guessing at the end of his internship, they offered him a full-time position to start at a certain date and time. And so when you basically, the reason why the internships become so important while you're an undergraduate is basically at the end of the internship, those firms are going to want to offer you a full-time position. And so if you've done the work and you've done a great job and if it's a good match, then you want to be working for them upon your graduation. So Soham is like totally chilling because he's done the worst part of it is basically getting that going. A firm telling you to graduate and then maybe apply for a staff role just sounds like really bad advice.
He said that's a
and
potential.
Potential, like all that's dude, it sounds like they're just like leading you on. I would move on.
Because I think like my strategy is kind of like I personally don't really want to work for a big four. I want to go like a little bit like lower, like a mid tier, but still like sizable just because like I know like work like balance doesn't really exist, but I am still trying to like get into like a culture that somewhat supports a little bit more. So I'm like kind of looking into these different mid tiers and or I guess like would you say like just get what you can get? Like it really doesn't matter.
You want to go to an accounting firm where it's going to be a match for you personally, right? So you want to be choosing an accounting firm that's going to be where where one, you like the people that you work with, because again, is accounting like the cat's pajamas? No. Working in accounting can have its ups and downs, but you want to work with a firm where you like the people. It's about the people and where the environment is such that you can really go through and thrive. That's really where you want to kind of be. That's the type of firm you would want to go to. So that's, and again, it can be like the Final Four is great, but it's not, there's like RSM, like my students, like when they go work at accounting firms, a lot of them are extremely happy at BDO, RSM, had a few from Forbes, from Fraser. And again, Conrad, it's really going to come down to you. And, it's really going to come down to like going into like that mid-tier firm, passing that CPA exam as fast as you can, getting your license. And then if you have a license and you're at the firm, then it's going to really open up a lot of different career potentials for you. But the advice you're getting, and I'm just going to go back to that and say, well, if you graduate, then maybe you can apply. No, that's not right. That just sounds like they're leading you on. And I would call BS on that. I might actually know who the recruiter is, by the way. But that just sounds like really bad advice. And again, Michael, that's my opinion. I'm not saying it's the right one, but that to me it sounds like it's something strange.
I really appreciate your brutally honest opinion.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm hearing. I mean, it's like if someone's saying like, oh, like everything's like daisies and roses and we're going to guarantee you an internship, it's like, no, I wouldn't believe anything. I mean, I really do not believe anything.
It's just I did interview with them like twice, and first time I didn't even get to the second round. The second time I did get to the second round. So like I feel like my chances are like higher, but yeah, like definitely would take that into consideration.
Remember too, if this is You're also now, just remember this, there are students from USC, UCLA, and Berkeley who want that position too. And it is becoming extremely competitive, right? So, and like, I'm not saying that, like, look, Fullerton is an amazing school for accounting, but it does not have the brand name of like a USC, UCLA, or Berkeley, right? So if those students who cannot get jobs in consulting are coming down and they want to live in Irvine, that's going to be tough. Makes it more competitive for you. And so that's really why just keep your mind open to working at different firms. And again, like RSM, when I was there in fall, but basically for Fall Meet the Firms, the line for that firm was way longer than KPMG's, which doesn't surprise me. So, okay, Mike, well, hold it. Like, look, if you have any other questions or if you want to talk to me about specifically about, like, I know you probably don't want to do it on this because I'm recording it and I'm going to put it up on YouTube, but it's like, if, you know, if you're going through though, and you have like, you know, if you want to talk more about the firm or whatever, feel free to reach out to me like during my office hours. You can find it on my faculty website. So Sabina, did you have another question?
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, it was just about that. You kind of just answered it though. So the best way is to just get an internship and then
If you can, right? I
full-time
mean,
if you can.
you just have to be recruiting. I mean, you want to be involved with the account. Like, and look, Soham's not telling me, hey, Bennett, you got to tell these people to run for the board positions on Accounting Society, right? I'm not going through and doing that. He's not paying me to promote the executive positions, right? But being actively involved on an executive board of BAP or the Accounting Society, you're going to get more exposure to the different recruitments of the different accounting firms, right? And it's also going to be like just in terms of like your networking and other things like that. I mean, that's really what it's really what is like, yeah, those are just some of the really important things. But it's, if you don't get an internship, it's not necessarily the end of the world, but it's just how so many of these different firms go through and recruit. Like I've seen, to give you an example, a big four firm had an opening for an associate position, but they wanted the person to be able to speak fluent Korean. And that was one time where it was like, nope, it wasn't an internship level, it was an open staff position. And so for like that open staff position, you know, that's something you could go through and apply for if you spoke fluent Korean. So again, it usually though, most of the firms will have some sort of internship program, which is generally going to be the best way to go. But remember, there's also like those different things, which they'll call like freshman advantage, summer leadership programs, all those different types of things that you want to also try to kind of go through and utilize basically for recruitment. So, before you did your internship at EY, did you join like were you part of like a leadership conference or did you do anything like that before that?
No, I did nothing like that. I was just on Accounting Society board. That's it.
Yeah, and that was probably a huge help.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Adrian, how are you?
Hi, Professor. I'm good, thanks. I know that your time's almost up, so I just wanted to
I
ask.
can go longer if you guys have questions. I can go longer.
Okay, great. Perfect. So I'm currently on track to graduate for December of 2026. I will have my 150 units by then, but I still have a few accounting classes that I'll have to take to meet the requirements for the education.
IBC is $46 a unit as well as any other community college.
Well, that's the thing, that's one of my questions as well, is that since I'm an international student, would you
Oh,
would you still
wow.
recommend? Yeah, would you
That's a little bit more expensive.
Yeah, definitely,
But
definitely.
I know we're cheaper though than Fullerton.
All right, I was just that was one of my questions actually, is if you would like suggest to take classes at IBC at a community college.
Well, the other challenge though is though as an international student, right? So, and it's like I don't know what your employment status is, but
I'm a citizen, so I can work in the States.
oh, you still have residency?
I just don't have residency, yeah.
Oh, okay. Do you have a job lined up?
I do, yes.
Oh, sweet, man. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I would like if you can somehow get, I mean, like the residency, I think for IVC may be easier than it might, or other community colleges may be easier. But I do know that if I just do a quick search here. So I think it's like 410 per unit. I'm pretty sure that that's probably going to be cheaper than probably. I'm pretty sure that's gonna be cheaper than Cal State Fullerton.
Yeah, no, it for sure is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. But despite that, I was wondering as well, like, when I do graduate, I will have 150 units, but to meet the education requirements for the CPA, I think I'll still be 2 accounting classes short. And I was wondering, since I'm graduating in December of 2026, should I still like pursue those accounting units to have the 150, or should I be
I
okay?
mean, I would say here's what I would say. I would kind of say that it depends on this, right? Is that if they say all of a sudden that they're not going to do this, meaning that they're going to basically junk it and basically say, oh no, we're going to keep the 150, then it's like, okay, then you just do it at that point. I mean, it's in terms of taking classes at a community college, it's relatively easy to kind of go through and register for them. So if you needed to take units, and by the way, if you're ever trying to get into an accounting class at IVC and it's full, if you reach out to me, I will do whatever I can to help you get into that class. Like, for example, I know that for my ethics course, one of the classes has 2 students on the wait list, but the other one has some open sections or open dates. So I would just tell you that, hey man, if those classes fill though, and you want to get into the class, just reach out to me. But I would probably just kind of play the waiting game and try to get California residency. So you can get that $46 a unit.
Yeah, I'm working on that.
Cool, man.
All right. Thanks, Professor. That's
By the
it.
way, congrats on the job, on the position.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure. Okay. What other questions? Trying to see if there's anybody else who's taken. Okay. Okay, so again, Michael.
Yeah, just had a questions pop up in my head, but
Sure.
if my plan before was to graduate on time, but after like a couple of weeks, like these couple of weeks, I'm thinking it's a much smarter decision to postpone it to December. So with that in mind and how that kind of like affects how I'm gonna like start studying for the CPA, you can start studying for it because when I graduate, I will have my 150. And
I
that
mean, Michael,
means
I mean, you
months,
could start studying for the exam right
like
now.
6 months, right?
No, you can
Or
start.
or
No, but Michael, like, listen to me. Like, so if you wanted to, right, you could basically start studying for the CPA exam today. You could buy a review course for $2,000 and start studying for the CPA review today. Or you could start using CPA review to basically study for the exam today. Most students tend not to want to kind of go through and do that. Rather, what you may want to do is that I would maybe in that last semester you have before you graduate, if you're going to extend it out, take a lighter workload in terms of the classes. Like, don't take anything that's really heavy, take some easier classes. And then at the same time, be preparing to go through and to study for the CPA exam. But what I will say though, that your job search is absolutely critical. Like, make sure that you're basically going out and searching for positions. That's really what your main goal should be right now.
I guess like I had a conception that if I were to pass out like just one of the exams, that would help me get the internship.
Yeah.
Or
The only time that passing the exams will help you is that if you did not recruit while you're in school and you've graduated. If you've graduated, already and you do not have a job, at that point in time, passing parts of the CPA exam, in my opinion, will become more relevant because then you're showing your commitment to basically taking and passing the exam. Passing the exam while you're in school, the firms, by the way, like EY, like Soham, like when Soham goes to EY, do they care that he passes the CPA exam? The answer is no. What they care about is that, well, do you have the 150 done? And because they don't want him going back to school, and are you going to be able to work a lot of hours for us every single month, right? That's what EY cares about. Now, the one time passing the exam does make a difference for the accounting firms is that you cannot become a manager, which is after about 5 or 6 years at one of these firms, until you're a licensed CPA. So it will literally prohibit your promotion to becoming a manager if you delay passing that test. So that's when passing the exam becomes really, really critical. But I think, though, for you is that, and again, I'm not telling you to go take a job on Spirit Airlines, but I would try to encourage you to basically find a job that's something that interests you, like in a retail type situation where you're interacting with more like a general public instead of doing just like tutoring. Maybe perhaps using that to try to help you, like, basically get some more interesting things kind of on your resume. You don't have to do that. It's just something that I know that one of my students right now, she works at In-N-Out, and that experience is amazing. Another amazing retail experience to have is if you've worked at the Apple store. That's another amazing retail experience to have. And that really should be on the resume. I mean, can you imagine, like, you're sitting with someone because you've been dealing with iPhones all day, you talk to a recruiter and say, oh, let me see your phone and I'll make this, work like a little bit better. So those are just kind of thoughts in terms of like, how do you change things up in terms if you're kind of like looking for like that next job?
So would you say like a good action plan would be like trying to find a job, like kind of like a retail job ASAP for kind of this summer-ish? And then a little bit after the summer, when then I start going into recruiting season, for I guess potentially also winter, but I think I'm probably looking for mainly next summer. Then I can leverage that this summer's working retail experience onto that.
Absolutely. We're going to have a visitor here just in a second. Hold on. I always love getting Zoom bombed by my cat, and my cat's almost here. Let's make his appearance. He's not just kind of being a little bit shy, but we'll see if he decides to come up and join in on the conversation. Yeah. All right. There we go. This is Ozzy. It's a kitten. Let's see here. Hold on. There we go, Ozzy. There we go. All right. It's exciting stuff. Okay. It's always a good way to end a video. That's when you have a cat. Yes. All right. So any questions for myself or Ozzy? Ozzy's actually heard me lecture in my house. That's how I go through and practice for like my lectures, as I go through, and Ozzy's going to take FAR pretty soon. He's debating on whether though to take TCP or ISC. So we got to work on that. Yes. So what are the questions? More questions. Michael, does that kind of make sense though?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Sure. And again, Michael, I will also in the video that are like in the basically in the presentation, I will put in a link to those meetings I've had with different accounting firms. I think if you watch those videos, you'll really get a better understanding in terms of the recruiting process. Just, and I wouldn't say that unless I've had students that have essentially taken those videos and have basically utilized them for employment positions.
That's like I do have like a question, just to bounce off of what you just said, but like you mentioned how when you want to work, when you decide of which firm to work for, you kind of want to see basically, can you get along with the people? Can you see yourself working with them like 5, 10 years down the line? If you decide to stay that long. Um, but I mean, like my personal experience is just to go to the speaking meetings and just see how those people interact and talk to some of the representatives and but besides that, especially like when you go to meet the firms, how can you find out on a deeper level and come up with more genuine questions to ask the firm? Because honestly, like all firms are really all the same. Like the only I guess research you can do is like yeah, like listening to those interviews, going to their website, kind of seeing their values that they put on there. I mean, honestly, like they're all kind of similar anyways, right? There's like a
So if you're seeing like really, it's part of like being on the accounting society board and like being involved in the accounting society and BAP, especially from like an earlier time, is that being able to then like, okay, the people there's basically Soham is now, so are you graduating in May?
Yes, yeah, I am.
Yeah, so you already know somebody who's going to be going to EY, right? So what's kind of crazy about the recruitment process is that those individuals that have already been like accepted, like so when and basically, and so on, correct me if I'm wrong, but is Robert Guzman your recruiter at EY?
Yes, yeah, he is.
What Robert does is after what you're going to notice is the next time after at the end of Meet the Firms, what happens is that after everybody leaves, the recruiter is going to basically gather up those people that they've kind of brought in to meet the firms or wherever else and basically ask them, well, what did you think of Michael or what did you think of, this different person? When a firm is looking for somebody, they're not just asking the partner because the partner is really never going to deal with you as an associate. You're going to rarely get interactions with a partner, especially at a larger firm. You may get some interactions with managers. Mainly it's going to be senior associates and other staff. And so when you're working on the accounting society or when you're working in BAP, how you're interacting with others is really important because that's basically what's going to help you potentially get a job. Because, and I can tell you right now, like if a student takes my class and I see that they've been showing up to class every day, they're really trying to learn, they're putting in a really good effort, they're kind to others, and I will absolutely go to bat for those students. Like in terms of I've actually had conversations with recruiters where I said, if you don't hire Jeffrey, like you're an idiot. And they said, really, Bennett, is that really what you just told me? Like you didn't hire my student, so like you're calling me an idiot? Like really? Is that what's happening? No, it's one of those things though where it's going to be a lot of just your own personal connections from being around other students. So in a way, you're kind of like I'm not saying that Soham is like taking notes about Michael right now. I don't think he is because I think he has other things to do like study for FAR. But it's but it's really one of those things though where it's like it's just there's gonna be a lot of different factors. I mean, like, look, use LinkedIn, really try to kind of get to know, again, like the more people you're interacting with, either at the firm, outside of the firm, family, friends, just there's a lot of untapped resources out there that you may not just be using. And just remember when you're interviewing, it's not the partner is not going to say hire this person. It's really going to be a collective kind of assessment.
Thank you again, Professor Tchaikovsky. Really appreciate it.
No worries. Okay. Anything else? Okay. All right, so Soham, if you can hang out for a second, but I want to thank everybody else here for being here today. awesome to have you guys here, and I will be providing basically the presentation I went through and went over to all of you, so you guys have like access to it. If you go through and look at my whatchamacallit, if you go through and if you want to contact me, you can always contact me through the IVC website. There's basically a link to like my Zoom, basically to my Zoom. So, Rini, ready? So, did you have a question?
Hi, Professor. Sorry, I have a question. I'm a currently CourseWork full-time student.
Okay.
Also a BEP member. So
Okay.
I have a question. I know you mentioned 20 units for accounting and also for the business. So are there any grade requirement for that?
No, you just have to make sure you pass them. As long as you have like it, as long as the units appear on the transcript, the grades are irrelevant. For the Board of Accountancy, the grades are irrelevant.
I see. Is there comparison like from other people? I'll get an A or B, and then you got lowers. Okay.
No, doesn't matter. They just want the units. But the only the grades, the only thing the grades would really matter to would possibly be to a recruiter. Like if they say, oh, you have to maintain a certain GPA. But generally that I haven't really found that really ever to be the case. So it's kind of like, yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much for answering the question.
Okay.